Why am I here, Daddy?
And it's such a good question.
The entire meaning of life.
Pick something up and carry it.
You're mistaking the ambience of life for life.
We can transcend what's happening now because we know that out there is a big dream. But what are we supposed to do? What kind of purpose are we supposed to pursue?
I would have the greatest difficulty in describing that line to you in such a way that you could write it down on a piece of paper in front of you without seeing it. But here you can see it.
Tao is the word we call that.
To make this life as creative and as beautiful and as rich as we can possibly make it.
If we become compassionate person, then your life becomes meaningful.
Hello everyone, I won't bore you with a long preface. I know that you didn't come here to listen to me. That is why I made this compilation. And because I'm just a guy making YouTube videos, I can't really answer that in words. So I recruited some help from the best, and I hope you enjoy. I will make one disclaimer. The video will make you emotional. At one point or another, you will get emotional, and that is the normal reaction. If you are not okay with being emotional, don't watch this video, because it will not do anything for you other than make you, well, give you something that you didn't ask for. And remember, these people are all from different walks of life. Some are religious, some are half religious, some are not religious at all. Some are young, some are on their deathbed. Some can barely speak, and some are professors at the most prestigious universities in the world. So don't you expect to find any synchronicities between them, because what would that mean, right? That's ridiculous. I hope you enjoy.
I wonder if my children put that question to me. Why am I here, Daddy? And I've often wondered, what would I say to them? Well, I know, because I've had the question and I have answered it. Do you know what I told them? Because I wanted you to be. And one of the biggest things for me is this. If you ask that question as bluntly as that, why are you here? I can't get behind this, that God wanted me to be. That ultimately, I exist because God, the God of the universe, wanted me to be. And I see all of purpose at all the other levels flowing from that. Now, that might not be the kind of answer you were thinking of, but it seems to me you can't get behind that, you see. Why would God want me to be? Well, if you look at me, you'd wonder, wouldn't you? I mean...
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yes, of course you weren't, but it is true. And it's so encouraging. Look at me, I'm not perfect. I have all kinds of hang-ups and so on. Someone who accepts you as you are. I believe that occurs at a higher level. It's only the start of the Christian faith. It's not the end. But to my mind, it's one of the most significantly meaningful things that I've got. I'd rather have that than anything else, all the degrees I've got and all that kind of stuff. I'd much rather have that friendship at the highest level of a friend that actually wants me to exist.
Precisely 10 minutes to give you the entire meaning of life. When I was a physician in training, and I'm still a physician, although some people call me a witch doctor, I used to ask my patients, why do you want to get better? It happened one day because one of my patients who had coronary artery disease says, I have to get better. So I said, why? He said, I have to go to work. I said, why do you have to go to work? He said, I have to send my children to school. I said, why do you have to send my children to school? They get a good education. I went on, and finally he said, shut up. All I want is to be happy. Okay, so then I started asking my patients the same question. I'd take them down the rabbit hole, and they'd all say the same thing. I want to be happy. Is the ultimate goal of all other goals. You want to be successful because it'll make you happy, you think. You want to have a good relationship because in your mind, that's going to make you happy. You want to be healthy because it's going to be making you happy. You want higher consciousness, a connection with the source of the universe, happiness. So here you go. I'm going to give you the happiness formula. And this occurred after His Holiness the Dalai Lama a few years ago asked a bunch of us, he said, why don't you all talking about stress? Why don't you talk about happiness?
If we become compassionate person, then your life becomes meaningful.
The easiest way to be instantly happy, is to make somebody else happy. And you do that by giving them attention, listen to them, affection, care for them, and appreciation. Notice some strength that they have. So there you have the happiness formula. They can have all the things in life that they get, and they can still have existential unhappiness because they worry about not being happy in the future.
And the answer might be, well, maybe you're leaving out the meaning of life. That's what it looks like to me. It's like, here you are, suffering away. What makes it worthwhile? Rights? You know, you're completely out. You have no idea what it's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is. Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect? That's the story of the fall. Pick something up and carry it. You know, their eyebrows lift, their eyes light up because I put something together for them. And that's what mythological stories do. So I'm not taking responsibility for that. That's what the stories do. So I say the story and people go click, 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 you know, and their eyes light up. But this responsibility thing, that's a whole new order of this. There's maybe 100 boxes, and you open up a box, and in the box there's some pens and some old passports and some checks and their collection of silver dollars and some hypodermic needles and some dust and, you know, a dead mouse. And there's boxes and boxes and boxes like that in the house. It's absolute chaos in there. Absolute chaos, not order, chaos. And then you think, is that their house or is that their being? Is that their mind? And the answer is, there's no difference. There's no difference. So, you know, I could say, well, if you want to organize your psyche, you could start by organizing your room. You tell a child to clean up his room. He says, I didn't ask to be born. Now I have to clean up rooms? This is no longer a religious question. This is a life question that young children are asking. The Rebbe said, you don't need to be born. You don't ask to be born. So why are you? Why are you here? So it's not a religious question, it's not a philosophical question. It's a question of reality. What am I doing here, and how did I become obligated to pay bills and to clean up rooms and to get good report cards? How did this happen? And it's such a good question. But if you're being logical, it's true that you didn't ask to be born. It's true that you don't need to be born. I've never heard someone who wasn't born complain. No such complaint. We don't need to be born. So follow the logic. If you're not here out of need, then why are you here? The most logical answer. You're not here because of your need. No. If you're not here because you need it, someone needs it. Someone needs you to be born. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. The message is simply this. If you think you need, you're going to become depressed. Because it's artificial. You don't really need anything. So as soon as you start thinking need, you're already depressed.
The alternative is you are needed. It is depressing to be needy, and it is depressing to not be needed. If you solve those two problems, you will have no others. Here is the simple conclusion. We have the option to think of our needs or to think of who needs us. If nobody needs you, you are depressed. If you have needs, you are depressed. So what's the solution? Obviously, your needs are not yours. His need of you is absolutely eternal.
That God wanted me to be.
The best of both worlds. I have no burdens. I have no reason to be depressed because I don't need anything. But if nobody needs me, I'll be depressed. God needs you. That's Judaism. The rest is commentary.
Life is within you or around you. The ambience of life, you're mistaking the ambience of life for life. Your home, your family, your workspace, your party, this is all ambience of life. This is not life, isn't it? Yes or no? You're mistaking the ambience for the real thing. Isn't it fantastic that if there's no purpose, you have nothing to fulfill, you can just live?
The best of both worlds. I have no burdens. I have no reason to be depressed because I don't need anything.
Rest is all imagined stuff, isn't it? The only thing is that this is beating and alive, and that's all there is. So is this important? It is of paramount importance. Not you as a person, that's not important. But you as a piece of life, it's very important.
God needs you. That's Judaism. The rest is commentary.
Because that is the basis of everything. When I say that is the basis of everything, the universe exists for you only because you are, isn't it? Yes or no? The world exists for you only because you are, otherwise it wouldn't exist in your experience. So what is the purpose for this? It is the pettiness of one's mind, that it is seek a meaning. People are constantly trying to create these false purposes. And is there a God-given purpose? Suppose he doesn't have a plan for you, an individual plan for you. Don't look for such things. The thing is, the creation is made in such a way that creation and creator cannot be separated. Here you are a piece of creation, at the same time the source of creation is throbbing within you. If you pay little attention to this process of life, you would not need any purpose. It'll keep you engaged for 1,000,000 years if you want.
What Lao Tzu wrote became the sacred text known as the Tao Te Ching. In reality, the Tao Te Ching is likely to be the compilation of the works of many authors over time. We need to be in touch with our real, deeper selves. We spend a great deal of time worrying about who we ought to become, but we should instead take time to be who we already are at heart. Our ego is often in the way of our true self, which must be found by being receptive to the outside world, rather than focusing on some critical, too ambitious internal image. He said, "The best people are like water, which benefits all things and does not compete with them. It stays in lowly places that others reject. That is why it's so similar to the..."
So as soon as you start thinking need, you're already depressed. The alternative is you are needed.
Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load.
I need to start with a confession. I learned almost everything I know about life from John Cusack movies. And in these movies, the hero, just through the sheer force of trying to be a good guy and speaking from the heart, wins true love in the end and the widespread admiration of all. This makes no sense, but I didn't care because I was on a mission. It's that need to move. We must move. We can transcend what's happening now because we know that out there is a big dream that we're pursuing. So in our very being is the need to do. But what are we supposed to do? What kind of purpose are we supposed to pursue? The answer comes from significance. the need to make sense. Raise your hand if you see a camel. Right, so there's no camel there, obviously. It's just a little squiggly thing. And if you didn't see a camel initially, when I said, do you see a camel, it became a camel. It can be almost anything because our brains are created and have evolved incredible capacity to combine and recombine and find associations and link and relink and find patterns and maps and meaning everywhere. The question isn't, can we find meaning in life? We can't not find meaning in our lives. It's happening all the time.
It works in this sort of way. I was talking about our world being wiggly. You know, something like this. That is the typical sort of shape that we're having to deal with all the time. And I think you'll see at once that a shape like that is extraordinarily difficult to talk about. If I were talking on the radio at the moment and not on television, I would have the greatest difficulty in describing that line to you in such a way that you could write it down on a piece of paper in front of you without seeing it. But here you can see it, and you can understand it at once. And so we introduce then the idea of Maya by essentially doing this. This might be called a matrix.
The matrix is everywhere.
A line crossed, lines crossed by lines in a very formal, simple pattern. And the moment we do that, it becomes very easy indeed to talk about this wiggly line, because we could, for example, number all these squares across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. We can also number them downwards. And then in terms of numbers across and numbers down, we can indicate the exact points on this grid which cross the wiggly line.
It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth?
We are breaking it up into little bits, whereas in fact it is not a lot of little bits. It is a continuous sweep. But by treating it in this way, as if it were broken up into bits, we are measuring it, we are making a Maya, and these cross lines are a Maya just in the same way as the idea of the lion, the Leo constellation in the stars is a Maya, a way of projecting. You see, this thing, it comes out of our minds, and we project it upon nature like this, and break nature into bits so that it can be easily talked about and handled. But you see, this tends to give us the impression that our world is a lot of bits, and that things are really separate from each other. You see, how could I demonstrate how this is? I've an idea. Mr. Cameraman, will you focus the camera on one small, tiny spot in the set? Now you see, this is looking at the world, little bit by little bit, as if we were only using the central vision of our eyes, the kind of vision we use for reading and close work of that kind. But if this were the only way we had of looking at things, it would be very difficult to make any sense of life at all, because we would see everything in series, bit after bit after bit. But fortunately, we are also able to enlarge the whole view and take in everything at once in a single sweep. And you see, this shows all the advantages and the disadvantages of looking at things in the way that Indian philosophy calls Maya. And our world is not just one thing happening, one after another, one at a time. Our world is an enormous volume, a great vastness, in which everything is happening all together at once.
On one space, one environment that's inside another environment. They are in this backyard. The ant doesn't know that there's more than the patio here. You just think there's an ant,
Oh, let's see.
He just thinks that he just keeps walking. He doesn't know he's just part of of lots of worlds, and the human race is sort of like that.
So what's the meaning of our lives here on Earth then?
That's one of the hardest questions there is. I would say what the meaning of your life is what you make it. What you think, what you want your life to be. Nobody can decide what you will do except for you. You have control over yourself. You may not be lucky enough, and the odds may be against you, but there's never a definite no that you cannot do this.
So you think that we do have free will then? We can do whatever we want. It's not predestined or anything.
It may be predestined, but you can change that destiny.
Oh, well that's tricky. But it's good to know.
I mean, I might be wrong. It might be just scheduled, like some play or something, and you act it not knowing that you're part of it. But all the same, maybe destiny's just telling you. Maybe you just know it, and that's what destiny is. Destiny is a guess of what you know, what it knows about you, and what it knows you would do. But then again, I might be wrong.
Is a deeper question altogether, which is, what do you desire? What makes you itch? What sort of a situation would you like? Well, when we answer that question in a naive way, we figure out that we want a desire, what we want is to control everything. To create girls that don't grow old, apples that don't rot, clothes that never wear out, conveyances that get from one place to another instantly so we don't have to wait, power available to do anything that you could conceive and do it just instantly like that. To get this funny technological omnipotence. But if you take time out to think about that, and really go into it with your full strength of imagination, and find out whether that's where you want to be, you will soon see that's not what you want.
We forget so easily that the entire system of nature, ourselves included, is interconnected in every conceivable way. You know what happens when you think, well, we've got a lot of mosquitoes around here, all kinds of insects that bite us and bother us. Let's get rid of them. So we bring in the DDT and we send an aeroplane over and spray the whole surrounding territory with DDT. And what happens? Suddenly we find that other insects or other pests which those insects we destroyed were feeding upon multiply and increase. And we have a new problem. We have to get rid of those. It's like when they brought rabbits into Australia because they thought they'd be useful there for some reason or other. The rabbits multiplied because there was nothing that fed on rabbits. Then they had a plague of rabbits. You see, you cannot just push nature around. You cannot regard it as something to be attacked so that you can grab bits from it and shove it around any old way as if it were a machine that you could bang around like a mechanic. Indeed, even machines, as any good mechanic knows, are not that simple to play with. But if we do not see that our view of the separateness of the world is based on a convention of thinking, it exists, as it were, in here. It doesn't exist out here in actual concrete reality. And if we are confused, then we jump to follow our thoughts instead of our senses. And this is no sense.
First question, if there is no heaven and hell, isn't life pointless? This is an odd question that I get almost always from religious people. This is I consider this a kind of software glitch of the human mind. It's not a question that resonates with me, and I want to try to unpack why I think it's so strange. That the subtext of this question, and even rather often the text, is that unless experience lasts forever, there's no point. It means nothing. So just try to map this onto your life. Every good meal you've had, every pleasant experience as opposed to an unpleasant one, every relationship, none of it means anything because it ends. A good movie is meaningless. It's no better than a bad movie because it ends. This is a strange idea. This is unless we disappear into infinity with experience, there's no difference between the most sublime happiness and the most abject suffering. And I think when you actually try to connect with that intuition, it's strange and really is insupportable in our moment-to-moment experience. We care very deeply about the character of our experience. In fact, it's the only thing we can care about. And I think quite to the contrary, this notion of eternity, this notion of nothing matters here, but it matters in over the long haul, in the afterlife, because the bulk of our experience is after we die. This religious idea actually robs life of its meaning. It doesn't bring meaning to life. To make this life as creative and as beautiful and as rich as we can possibly make it.
If we become compassionate person, then your life becomes meaningful. Because you yourself happy, calm, peaceful, your friend, or including animals, also you get peace. So at the last day of our life, you feel happy. Now whole my life now spent peaceful, friendly, then you really feel happy. Otherwise, at that moment, even you are a billionaire, those money, nothing can be used. No matter what's the good, because of the good body, or beautiful body, or everything have to leave. So at that time, I think genuine satisfaction can bring, if your whole life spent more compassionate life, then you feel.
To make this life as creative and as beautiful and as rich as we can possibly make it.
Oh, no regret.
Being 97 has been an interesting experience. I'll say that. I think it's important to figure out why it is then that people are afraid of death. Why am I concerned about it? I often walk around the house and I ask myself, often out loud, what is the point of it all? There must be something I'm missing in this argument. So here I am, trying to work out where I am. I still find that I am, in many ways, a puzzle to myself. I do find it very interesting to try to figure it out, what's going on. And I spent a lot of my life thinking about such issues. But it's hard. I don't know. I think the answer may be, the silent answer may be, there is no point. It's a foolish question. I was with her even when she was dying. That was a difficult experience. At least we got to embrace at that time. I still would like to hang around. I don't know the basic reason why I should want to, or the basic reason why I should be afraid of it. What does it mean that I'm going to leave?
None of it means anything because it ends. You know, a good movie is meaningless. It's no better than a bad movie because it ends. This is a strange idea. This is unless we disappear into infinity with experience, there's no difference between the most sublime happiness and the most abject suffering. And I think when you actually try to connect with that intuition, it's strange and really is insupportable in our moment-to-moment experience. We care very deeply about the character of our experience. In fact, it's the only thing we can care about. And I think quite to the contrary, this notion of eternity, this notion of nothing matters here, but it matters in over the long haul, in the afterlife, because the bulk of our experience is after we die. This religious idea actually robs life of its meaning. It doesn't bring meaning to life.
As I sit out now on my deck of the house, I look at the trees blowing a little in the breeze, and I've seen them innumerable times, but somehow seeing the trees this time is a transcendent experience. I see how marvelous it is, and I think to myself, I've had these here all along, but have I really appreciated them? And the fact is that I have not, until now. And in a way, it makes the fact of death even more difficult to accept. It just brings tears to my eyes.
And so if you went into sleep, into unconsciousness for always and always and always, it wouldn't be at all like going into the dark. It wouldn't be at all like being buried alive. It would be as if, as a matter of fact, you had never existed at all. If I try to remember back and back and back and back, I've got my earliest memories, and then behind them, nothing. Total blank. But just as I know there's something behind my eyes by using my fingers on my head, so I know through other sources of information that before I was born, there was something going on. There were my father and my mother, and their fathers and mothers, and the whole material environment of the earth and its life out of which they came, and behind that the solar system, and behind that the galaxy, and behind that all the galaxies, and behind that another blank, space.
Why am I here, Dad?
And it's such a good question.
The entire meaning of life.
Pick something up and carry it.
You're mistaking the ambience of life for life.
We can't just stop. We can transcend what's happening now because we know that out there is a big dream. But what are we supposed to do? What kind of purpose are we supposed to pursue?
I would have the greatest difficulty in describing that line to you in such a way that you could write it down on a piece of paper in front of you without seeing it. But here you can see it.
Tao is the word we call that.
To make this life as creative and as beautiful and as rich as we can possibly make it.
If we become compassionate person, then your life becomes meaningful.